Hey everybody, welcome back to Minor Stuff. I'm Matt.
I'm Pat.
And we're the Minor Brothers. Today, we're going to go over our picks to start your home bourbon bar.
Welcome back, everybody. Before we get started on our picks for what you need to start your own bourbon bar with, hit that like button for us, subscribe to our channel, drop a comment down below if you'd have anything different.
All right, so let's get into this. As you can see...
Well, before we get started, Matt, let's talk about what we're drinking tonight.
Oh, okay.
A little bit of Buffalo Trace. Nothing super special, just a nice sipper. Nice and easy. So that's what we're having tonight while we go over everything.
Yeah. So obviously, when you go to a liquor store, you start, your bourbon adventure. You're wondering, okay, where am I going to start? What's a good place to start?
Can be overwhelming.
It can be very overwhelming.
I walked in the first time and I'm like, I don't know what to pick. There's so much stuff there. You know, a couple people are familiar with Jack Daniels, but you don't know what type of Jack to buy. Or there's the, famous makers with the, melted red top. Yeah. Yep. So, there's so much of it, you're just like, I don't know what to get.
And you want to make sure that you have a good selection so when you have people come over that you have something good for them to try too. Obviously, you're not going to have a little bourbon bar like this to start with. So where did we start? I started with Jack Daniels, just plain old Jack number 7 on the rocks, started sipping that, moved on to actually Buffalo Trace was my next one, and then I started getting my palate sort of expanded more. I ended up getting into more of the cask strengths and really venturing out into some of the different types of bourbons.
Getting into it, just starting off, you're probably going to want to start at the lower proof end just to get used to it a little bit. I myself started at the 90, liked it, went up to 100. I find my spot is between 100 and 110 is where I kind of like my proof. I know you're a little bit higher.
A little bit higher than that, yeah.
But if you're starting with 130 proof right off the bat, you're probably not going to like it. The Kentucky Hug will be a little too much for you.
Yep.
And it might turn you down on it. So, you want to get started with some of our picks?
Yeah. So the very first thing you need is a very basic, cheap, well-rounded bourbon that's going to be good for sipping, good neat on the rocks, or also a good mixer. And for us, Wild Turkey 101. This is a staple, I believe, on every home bar. It is great. It comes in right around the $20 level, so you're not spending a ton of money on a bottle. You got a good proof to it. Very good flavor, so if you're going to have it neat, if you're going to have it on the rocks, it tastes good no matter what. And you can just go ahead and mix it with some Coke if that's what you want to do. You have people come over to your house, they're going to know Wild Turkey. And people who are into it have usually had Wild Turkey. It's a good all-around one. And if not that, the other cheap one that we usually recommend to go to, Evan Williams White Label, Bottle and Bond. It's also nice just to have a Bottle and Bond. Originally, our list was going to include Henry McKenna, which is definitely one of my favorites, but it's hard to get a hold of. I mean,
it's allocated.
We went like 2 years without getting one, and then luckily found a whole bunch of them, and I bought up as many as I could, so I'd always have some around. But these ones are both, $20 or under. Great for mixing, great for sipping. It's something that's not going to let you down.
Yep. For me, one of my first starters was Elijah Craig Small Batch. I use this to mix with Old Fashions. It was a great, entrance for me into the Old Fashioned world. There's a lot of history behind Elijah Craig. Gives you a little bit, if you read up into the knowledge, you can, talk with some of these experienced
that stuff. Even though it's questionable if he really was, it gives you a talking point.
Yeah, it gives you a talking point if you're ever with some serious bourbon drinkers. It's a great mixer, great for Old Fashions, and it's a good starter to have just on the rocks. And it's not going to break the bank. Mid-30s, like $35 a bottle. It's a good price for a solid bourbon.
Yep. After that, I think you got to have a weeder of some sort. Maker's Mark has been one of my go-tos. I shortly after Buffalo Trace went to Maker's Mark. As soon as I found the 101, though, I really ended up liking that. I was doing a lot of mixes with and cocktails with Makers, but the 101 gives you a little bit higher proof. So when you start diluting it down with stuff, you still get the good proof that you're originally looking for. So I think Maker's Mark 101 is a good one, and it's only $40. So it's not like you're spending a ton of money to get a little bit higher proof or anything like that. It's going to be a little bit sweeter because it's a weeder, and it's just, I think, a great one to have, let alone everybody knows the red wax top. So it's good just to have around, because if people don't know and they show up at your house, they'll be like, oh yeah, I'll just take the Makers, because, once again, very well known.
Very, very well known. All right. My next pick is going to be the Woodford Reserve Double Oaked. Little toasted barrel, a little bit more flavor. Again, you have somebody who has been drinking bourbon over. You want to give them a little something. Great one to have on the rocks or neat. And you can use this in the old fashions as well and other cocktails. But it's a great bourbon to have to offer to other people to, get some different flavors going.
Yeah, I think a toasted barrel of some sort is definitely needed, just for not people getting started right away, but once you start having a palate, you're going to want to expand, take that ride that the bourbon brings you on, and this is a great one to do it with.
Definitely. And it's affordable too, $43, $45, depending on your, again, these prices are for us up in New England, but this is something you can find. You can walk into any liquor store and you should be able to find this.
Yeah, all these ones you should be able to find on the shelf without a problem. We stayed away from anything that was allocated or hard to find, just for that purpose of, it's already hard enough to try to figure out what you want to put in your bar, but then to go to a liquor store and not find it, it's even worse. So the other thing you got to have is some sort of rye. Any rye will do. I'm a big fan of Michter's rye. Also a big fan of Sazerac. Sazerac's a little bit harder to find, at least up here it is. Michter's is on the shelf on every store. So why not? It gives you a little bit spicier of a bourbon. It's great for cocktails. Adds a whole nother level to your cocktails just because of that rye spice.
Yeah, it's a totally different flavor. It will completely shock you if you've never had a rye. Give it a try, and it's going to take you new places.
Yeah, you definitely got to usually acclimate your palate to ryes, just because they are a little bit spicier. But it is definitely.
Yeah, I wouldn't start with a rye.
I honestly wouldn't either. I'm much more of a big fan of the, like I said, just a smaller, cheaper bourbon just to start with, and then work your way into it as far as your palate and stuff goes. But these are great. If you're just doing cocktails, just doing mixers, this is a great one for that too. And it's not even that bad price too. It's usually around $45 or so for the bottle.
All right. Next one, we go to a little higher proof. We'll go to Old Forester's 1920. So it's going to come in at 115 proof. So this is a good one to have if you have people over. You're going to work your way up to a higher proof. This is where you want to go. Now, you can start with the 1910, have it be a lower proof, get into it a little bit more. But if you have somebody over that is an experienced bourbon drinker, you can give them this and they will still be very, very happy. Old Forester is reliable, great, sipping.
Delicious every time.
Yeah.
And if for some reason you don't want this one, the one thing I would say too, depending on the time of the year, because right now, Wild Turkey Rare Breed is impossible to find for us. Mm-hmm. However, before all this started happening with the COVID and stuff, it was everywhere. And that would have been on the pick, because I think Wild Turkey 101, the Rare Breed, is a killer for most stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It kills it in a ton of blinds. It's got the good proof behind it. Really great for sipping. And it's just a phenomenal bourbon.
Yeah.
So,
but Old Forester, another one you can't go wrong with. So those are our picks for what we would use to start a bar. Should keep you under $200 or so to start a bar, depending on how many bottles you want to end up getting, and then start that journey. There. Yeah,
it's going to get real fast too, usually.
Yeah, expensive too.
But anyway, so that's our picks. Leave in a comment down below what pick would you add to this, and then we hope you follow us along for all of our other man shit that we're going to be going over. All right. Cheers and have a good day.